Hello everyone, this is Commodore Urban, everyone's favorite jack of all trades with the foul mouth. This is May 29th, 2019. You're probably wondering, what were we talking about? Well, it was 105 years ago on this date that one of the great passenger ships had disappeared, and it's not really well known. You could say that she's almost been forgotten about, and I want to make sure the disaster that befell this ship ain't forgotten about. And the ship I'm talking about is the Canadian Pacific liner RMS Empress of Ireland. Now, we'll talk about her. Actually, I'm going to read a little bit about her in the book, Lost Liners. I'm going to read her story, which ain't too long. I'm going to read the history of this ship through that book. So, bear here with me. This is a book written by Robert Ballard and Rick Archbold. So, all such happenings, great and small, lay in the future when a tragedy almost equal to the Titanic unfolded in the fog-shrouded St. Lawrence River in the spring of 1914, only a few months before the outbreak of the Great War. Ironically, had both ships involved exercised less caution, the accident likely would never have happened. As with the wreck of the SS Republic, the culprit was fog, but a fog peculiar to the St. Lawrence at the time of year, when the warm air in late spring encounters a river chilled by the icy meltwater. The two main actors in the drama were the Canadian Pacific steamship Empress of Ireland, outbound from Quebec, and the Norwegian coaler Snowstad, steaming upriver and loaded to the waterline. Their stage was a stretch of water just east of Rimouski, near the St. Lawrence's south shore, where the river opens up and navigation becomes simpler and faster. The Empress, having just dropped her pilot at Father Point, was still quite close to the shore. The Snowstad, about ready to pick up her pilot for the voyage upriver to Montreal, was hugging the coastline. The ships sighted each other near 2 o'clock a.m. on the 29th of May. Till then, a calm, clear night. On the bridge of the Empress of Ireland, Captain Henry Kendall guessed that the approaching ship was roughly 8 miles away, giving him ample time to cross her bow before he set his course for more open water. When he judged he was safely beyond the coaler's path, he did so. If he held his new course, the two ships should pass starboard to starboard, comfortably apart. Moments after he had executed the maneuver, a creeping bank of fog swallowed the Norwegian ship, and then swallowed the Empress. Although nothing like the Titanic in terms of size of elegance, the Empress of Ireland was the class of the Liverpool-Quebec City run that linked Canada Pacific steamships with its transcontinental railroad. Celebrities on board were few, notably the actor Lawrence Irving, famous son of the legendary Henry Irving, and his wife, the actress Mabel Hackney, returning from a successful Canadian tour. They and most of the other passengers, including roughly 170 members of the Salvation Army, heading to a big convention in London, were by this time of night sound asleep. So were most of the crew. Worried by the fog and the proximity of the other ship, Captain Kendall gave 3 blasts on his whistle, indicating to the other ship that he was ordering his engines full astern. Soon the 14,191-ton liner had slowed to a crawl, but Kendall kept her bow pointing on the course he had chosen and waited for a clear sign that the other ship was safely past. The next thing he saw were 2 masthead lights materializing out of the murk to starboard and heading straight toward him. The two ships were too close to avoid a collision, but Kendall ordered a sharp turn to starboard in the vain attempt to swing astern enough away from the approaching vessel that it would deliver a glancing blow. The impact when it came was decisively gentle. The Snowstad bow, however, had gone between the liner's steel ribs as smoothly as an assassin's knife, wrote James Corall in his account of the disaster, and the wound was fatal. Water poured into the starboard side of the ship so fast that most of the people sleeping in the starboard cabin didn't have a chance. There was no time for the progressions of class to be tested beyond the simple reality that residents in a higher class cabins were more likely to have some chance of survival. As the Empress of Ireland listed sharply to starboard, water began rushing into the portholes, left open despite the rule requiring their closure once the voyage was underway. The list quickly became so extreme that only 5 or 6 of the boats could be successfully launched. After 10 minutes, the liner lurched and lay on her side with hundreds of passengers perched on her hull. The situation had momentarily seemed like sitting on a beach watching the tide come in, according to a survivor. A mere 14 minutes later after the collision, she sank. And by the time the last nearly frozen survivor had been fished out of the water, the death toll was staggering. Of the 1,477 on board, 1,012 had lost their lives, including 840 passengers, 8 more than had died on the Titanic. So what the hell happened? According to the first mate of the Snorstead, who didn't rouse his sleeping captain until after the crucial decisions had been made, he and his colleagues in the bridge had distinctly seen the Empress of Ireland's red navigation light just before the fog closed in. If that was true, then the red light meant her port side was showing, which signaled to that the big ship had turned to pass them to port side. And if this is what the men on the Snorsted's bridge assumed, after a few minutes groping blindly forward, the Snorsted's mate grew nervous and ordered the coaler to turn to starboard, away from what now he presumed to be the other ship's course. In reality, he was turning the Snorsted directly into the Empress's side. Captain Kendall, who had been thrown off its bridge when the ship lurched into its beam ends, swore to his dying day that he had altered course cleanly, and maintained it faithfully as the fog closed in. He always blamed the Norwegian negligence for the disaster. "You had sunk my ship," were practically the first words he uttered when he was pulled on board the Snorsted to encounter her skipper. But perhaps his helmsman had swung her too far before she settled in on a proper course. Perhaps, as one of his crew later testified, there was a problem with the steering that caused his ship to wobble unpredictably on her course. Or perhaps that many lights on the brightly lit passenger vessel confused those on board the coaler. No one will ever know for sure. For certain, fog had once again proved to be a treacherous enemy. Yet, had the two ships simply just kept their courses and held their speeds, they would have passed each other without incident. Coming as it did so close after the sinking of the Titanic, the loss of the Empress of Ireland underlines the difficulty of building a ship that couldn't sink, or even building a ship guaranteed to sink so slowly that rescue was inevitable. True, the Snorsted was the worst imaginable ship to have collided with the liner. Her longitudinal bracing, designed to break through ice, made her a lethal weapon. And the fact that she was fully loaded meant that she punctured the Empress well below the waterline. She penetrated the lighter to a depth of at least 25 feet and left a gaping hole at least 14 feet wide. The Empress sank too fast for not any of her safety features to be fully operational. She had enough lifeboats for all her passengers and crew, but could not launch them in time. Many of her watertight doors, operated manually, could not be closed with the ship listing sharply and water rushing in. But despite the scale of the tragedy, it never achieved anything like the Titanic's fame or enduring fascination. The Empress of Ireland was not a practically famous or fashionable ship, and she sank so soon before the outbreak of the war that attention soon shifted to graver matters. The Commission of Inquiry, chaired by the same Lord Mersey who presided over the hearings into the sinking of both the Titanic and the Lusitania, was held in Quebec City, far from the international limelight. But the lessons from the Empress of Ireland's demise would have to be relearned barely 40 years later during the sinking of the Andrea Doria, when once again fog proved more than a match for the latest in seagoing technology. So yeah, you gotta think about it. That's pretty bad. And so, as for exploring, the Empress of Ireland, talking about exploring the wreck, it says, today the Empress of Ireland lies in about 130 feet of water, well within the reach of scuba divers. But because the St. Lawrence is a frigid 34 degrees Fahrenheit even in summer, and has tidal currents that run up to 5 knots can limit visibility, it is a dive for experts. Nonetheless, the Empress has been visited hundreds of times since it was rediscovered in the 1960s. Some divers have treated the wreck with respect and increased their knowledge over tragedy. Others have just left a trail of senseless damage. Modern divers follow a highway that was blasted into the heart of the ship in the summer of 1914, mere weeks after the disaster. Canadian Pacific hired a salvage company to retrieve the first-class mail, the purser's safe, and $150,000 in silver bullion, more than $2 million worth today. Descending through the explosive hold down to the first-class baggage and mailroom, one can encounter a dangerous tangle of wire and interior debris field of scattered suitcases and their decaying contents. Although the ship rests on a gravel sediment-free riverbed, the inside of the Empress of Ireland is half hidden by silt, steadily deposited by the St. Lawrence over the years. Because the ship rests at such a sharp angle, the starboard side of every interior room is buried, along with all the items set loose as the ship sank. In the mailroom, one diver discovered a whole box of neatly bundled and tied newspapers, the paper still white, the type still readable, dated May 27, 1914, the day before the ship left port. The next time he returned, the silt had shifted, burying the evidence. In the ship's dining saloon, oak chairs and tables appeared afloat in the silt like flotsam, and the remains of light fixtures dangled from the steeply angled ceiling. In the adjoining pantry, most of the first-class china that was still in its racks as late as the early 80s is now gone, as are most of the other movable objects in the accessible regions of the wreck, including the ship's bell, one of her propellers, the main British telegraph, and the telemotor. Sadly, even some of the divers have taken the bones of some of the more than 1,000 people who died when the Empress of Ireland went down. So yeah, there you have it, guys. A bit of the story of the Empress of Ireland. Very sad story. It just proves that, disaster can lurk anywhere. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about a almost nearly forgotten tragedy. And please remember the Empress of Ireland and her victims, please. Keep the memory of that ship alive, okay? Because she was basically about forgotten. Like I said, I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys had learned something. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you have, leave a like button. If you have questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section for me and I'll get back with you. And if you're new to the channel and you like what I'm doing, hit the subscribe button and notifications, and then become part of the Commodore's crew, and you'll be notified when I upload new content. So until next time, this is Commodore Irvin saying have smooth seas, clear skies, happy sailing with you, God bless, and just keep the memory of the Empress and her passengers and crew alive, okay? We don't want to forget this maritime disaster. Thank you very much. Good night.